Let's talk about Iansan. So Iansan versus Bennett. That is something that we've been hyping up quite a while, right? On my channel as well as many other channels. But regardless, there's something that is being neglected in this whole conversation. Are you ready to that? Iansan does not heal a lot. Let me repeat that. Iansan, she does heal. She heals for exactly 5,000 HP, not per tick, per rotation. Let me zoom in. How much HP does my Raiden have? 24,000. 20 seconds goes by or 18 seconds goes by, and then Iansan heals exactly 4,000 to 5,000 HP. One hit from the Consecrated Beast or one hit from the Hydro Topa, and all of that healing is gone. Compared to Bennett, who's healing about 3,000 to 4,000 HP every tick, every second. Compared to Silonan healing, Silonan heals for 6,000 HP every 1.5 second or 2 seconds, I cannot remember. Compared to that, with Iansan healing 5,000 HP per 20 seconds, Iansan healing is almost nothing. Okay, I don't know why they even put the healing into Iansan kit. Why is that important? It is important because if we want to replace Iansan with Bennett, let's not talk about the full practicality of pyro resonance or anything. Let's just talk about the healing real quick. If we replace this with Iansan, do not be alarmed by the random Dori jump scare. This is gonna be representing Iansan. If this is Iansan, there's no healing in this team. There's no other defensive utility other than Singel's sword. This team will feel terrible to play. So instead of the raw compression that Bennett provides, Bennett is doing a lot more than just buffing. We just always take his healing for granted, and that's kind of just a secondary thing that we think about. But when Iansan's released, she buffs a bit more than Bennett. She's gonna feel terrible to use because there's no healing in the team. There's no defensive. And then we can just default to using Iansan Bennett anyway, or Iansan Silonan. We could also use Iansan Silali for a team like this. And we can cope with Silali being an okay-ish flimsy shield defensive option for the team. Or we could do this. And now Bennett's back on the team, baby. Let's take a look at the possible healer or defensive option for Iansan. I'm gonna just pull up a tier list website, but we're not really making a tier list because I don't have the full cast of characters in my account. This is gonna be helpful for us to just put characters in and potentially make a team, so it's visually appealing. Iansan's defensive teammate. So Iansan being a character that buffs but having no defensive utility, what kind of teammate would she need to be also in the team? It's gonna be either Bennett, Silonan, Silali, and Lanyan. Chevres, technically, Chevres does heal if you build for it. I believe that will be it. Instead of Bennett, if we have to use something like Iansan Jin, then why not just use Bennett? Because he does both, and then we can slot in another buffer or another damage dealer. Bennett, Furina, or something like this, right? So the option that we put in for Iansan as a healer has to be doing something more than just healing. That's what the point I'm trying to arrive at. Baiju for me is Jin tier for healing. Like, they heal, they do not do anything else. It covers into this character who heals and do a lot more. This character who heals and does also a lot more. This character heals and does a lot. This character provides shield and do a lot. This character provides shield and do a lot. Whenever we're gonna see Iansan, we're gonna see she's getting accompanied by one of these characters. Most likely, you're gonna see this, which is a sad truth that we're not really getting away from Bennett, but it is what it is. We're likely gonna also see this quite a bit. We're also gonna see this quite a bit because Iansan is an electro character, can play in Chevres team. These are some example teams that gonna not work if we're just gonna swap Bennett to Iansan. Team example, let's say we have a Kinich team. Kinich, Farina, Bennett, and either Mahuika or Shangli. Let's look at this team. If we swap Bennett out to use Iansan, this team no longer functions because there's no healer for Farina. Even in the team version with Emily instead of Farina, if we swap Bennett out of this team for Iansan, this team still feels incredibly uncomfortable to play because there's no defensive here. Chaska also heavily relies on Bennett for the healing. If say we have a very classic Chaska team, which is one of the team when she first comes out, and if we just simply replace Bennett with Iansan, Farina will no longer buff a lot anymore. Now let's look at a more modern version of the Chaska team, Silali. Then actually replacing Bennett with Iansan here is okay. Silali is a defensive option and will make the team okay to play, even though we don't have Bennett. Then this is a team example that is fine with straight up just swapping Bennett with Iansan. Another team, which we have done a lot of testing today, is Raiden, Singjil, Bennett, Shangli. Swapping Iansan for Bennett here would not be fine because there's no defensive here. But if we are talking about this team, then Chevres is a healer. Then that means swapping Iansan instead of Bennett here is now fine. It's just something that we have to think about when we make teams. It's not a straightforward swap for Iansan versus Bennett. She's not really just plug and play into our second side of the abyss. We really have to think somewhat differently than when we try to plug and play with Bennett. Any question, chat? Hopefully that's been helpful. Regarding the Iansan value, I can summarize it by probably 2 sentences like this. Iansan buffing power is comparable to Bennett, but she doesn't heal, So we're gonna have to think about her team a bit more than when we just use Bennett. That's the things that I think has been kind of neglected when talking about Iansan versus Bennett. I am very excited for Iansan, don't get me wrong, because it's so rare that we get a character that gets a rivaling buffing power as Bennett for attack scaling character, and with just a little bit of thinking about team making, we could potentially have 2 Bennett for 2 sides of Abyss that both use attack scaling character, or we can use Bennett and Iansan together. Yes, have a good one.